All right, it's time for a brand new tournament here. We are actually going to do things differently this time. We're going to do the best WWE champion of all time. Now, the way that I broke this up, for anybody who hasn't gotten a chance to check the website yet, there's 43 people that have been WWE champion. So that's not only an uneven number when it comes to matches, but it's also an uneven number when it comes to breaking it down into a 32-person tournament, because I don't have 192 people or 64 people or anything like that to kind of even the odds or whatever. So I needed to figure out a way to eliminate 11 people from the tournament. And the only thing that made any sense to my mind was instead of doing a wild card this time, I'm going to immediately give that to Vince McMahon. He, when we get to the semifinals and we're down to, four people that are left, then I'm going to give people the opportunity to put Vince McMahon in instead of one of those four people. Same thing as what happened the last time. You have to vote whoever they beat. If they beat all of them, then you know who's pretty much going to win the tournament, but I highly doubt Vince McMahon's going to win the tournament. But that's the situation with McMahon. So you're not going to see him on the actual bracket itself, but he is there. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to cheat him out of it. The other people, I needed to eliminate 10 more people. So I took the people that had the least amount of title reigns and the least amount of combined days as championship reigned. And those are the 20 people that are going to fight it out to figure out which the 10 get eliminated or which 10 move on. Those people are what we're going to talk about today. They're the preliminaries or round one. And I tried to break the brackets up a little bit where it's kind of seated a little bit better. I didn't like the idea of having, start off and see Hulk Hogan against John Cena. And then you would end up having people like Psycho Sid move on, and it kind of seems a little weird. So I broke it up into what I thought were kind of fair quadrants. And then I kind of randomized it after that. But I wanted specifically to have a couple really good matches up there, so you're going to see some that look like they're kind of placed on purpose, and that's because they are. I'm not going to lie about that. There's no coincidence in the fact that Triple H is right near Shawn Michaels and CM Punk is right near Randy Savage, But first matchup we have is Batista against Ivan Koloff, and I'm going to say right now at the beginning of this tournament, I am going to be harsh on the old guys because I not only am not as familiar with them, but at the same time, I don't necessarily like the old style of wrestling as much.
Seriously?
And I can't stand watching like a Bruno Sammartino match.
Yeah, but Bruno Sammartino, he was kind of coasting. He took himself too literally.
See, that's the thing too.
Didn't he have the title and for like legitimately 7 years? Like a title reign that did not stop for 7 years. Like he held it for 7 years and then he finally dropped it.
But that was because he was going through terrors. No, but that was because that title wasn't the most important title in the company at the time. But we'll negate that at the moment.
And that's the thing with a lot of the old things is I don't want people to base off of, Fabulous Moolah was champion for 17 years because they didn't do anything with it. Well, that doesn't mean you're a better champion. So it doesn't matter if you were a champion for an extra month from somebody. That doesn't mean that you necessarily were a better champion. You got to go for quality over quantity.
Well, yeah. Well, for one thing, you got to take entertainment. Like who entertains you a lot during their title reign, right? Like,
and a lot of the older guys didn't have as much expected upon them. If you did, a bear hug for 20 minutes in a match, it was great. So I'm going to be really harsh on that. And if you're a real wrestling purist, you're going to be pissed at me. But at the same time, don't think that I'm going to be voting for, the best of all time is, somebody like Sheamus just because he's new. No, that's not going to be the case. So Batista and Ivan Koloff, I went with Batista. I think that his title reign at the end before he left was not only really entertaining, but I thought it was the best work that he's ever done in his career.
Kanye Batista.
Yeah, Kanye Batista. It set John Cena up really well for that storyline. It was a classic bad guy versus good guy kind of thing. I liked it a lot. Ivan Koloff, I can't tell you anything about him that I really think is special.
Well, both title reigns that they had were kind of similar. I mean, they were both placeholder champions for, in Batista's case, he's a placeholder champion for John Cena. He was the heel that, the face had to chase. Koloff was, if I remember correctly, he was the heel that Hogan had to chase. Now, I could be completely wrong.
Actually, you are kind of wrong on that. Koloff,
okay.
he had, I think, some sort of feud with Hogan, but he wasn't the guy that sort of mattered in terms of Hogan's reign. You're looking at guys like the Iron Sheik, King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant, guys that legitimately actually matter towards the reign. The one thing that people need to look at as well is how important the reign was. How much of a challenge did that person have while they were reigning champions? Like if you look at John Cena's reign, for instance, he was facing guys like Umaga. He had an amazing match with the Great Khali, who's very difficult to have a great match with. He's had matches with
Carried
JBL.
Lashley to a great match. He had a really great match with Randy Orton a month after that. You're talking about his 2007 reign.
Yeah.
Now, see, Koloff is the one who took the title from San Martino,
Correct.
But he lost to Pedro Morales. And I can't tell you anybody who's ever brought up to me everybody talks about San Martino being one of the best of all time and all this. I can't tell you anybody who goes, yeah, then when Koloff beat him, man, nobody brings it up. So to me,
but again, it's not one of those where you would actually see it on WWE television, because this was a time when the NWA was at prominence. So the WWF Championship, or the WWF Championship, was
20 Ws.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly the most prominent title there. So it was relegated to sort of like a mid-card title over the NWA Championship, which was sort of like the traveling man's title.
Yeah, because it was all about the territories,
Exactly. And who had the most stroke could get the champion in their territory, and that's the way it worked. So with those guys, you have to take that into consideration. Also take into consideration as well they're different eras, because you've got different timelines that these guys are working in. I feel at the moment, guys like John Cena, Mick Foley, CM Punk, like Edge, probably had a bit of a harder time than Hogan and Savage.
Right.
Just because the eras were different, just because the fact the travel schedule with Hogan and Savage.
There's more competition. There's more expected out of you,
Yeah.
So who do you guys...
As well.
Who do you guys go with between Batista and Koloff?
Batista.
Yeah, I have to go with Batista. Like, Koloff's a little way before my time. And
Batista's reign mattered a lot more as well, I believe.
Second one?
You look at Koloff, and he was holding it when the NWA title was bigger, and then Batista, he was the man. I mean, he's holding the top belt in all of professional wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
you got to think it's two different eras, in this particular instance, even though the product then and even now isn't at an all-time high, it's still the biggest wrestling promotion in the world, and it's still looked upon as the title.
Well, the NWA is literally the crack house of the wrestling industry.
Well, the second match we have is Stan Stasiak versus JBL, and I don't think it's really that much of a surprise. I'm going with JBL. Although I don't like JBL necessarily as much as a wrestler when it comes to comparing him against other WWE champions. He still had a great title reign. It was long. It served a purpose. He put over the new face of the company at the end of the feud. It's actually the beginning of the feud for the most part. But JBL...
He was literally seen as Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
That's a kind of an underrated feud. Not a lot of people talk about it, but I thought like the build up to WrestleMania 21 with those two is really, really well done.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's not really a feud you hear anybody talk about, I guess, because maybe Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels stole the show. Money in the Bank happened, and sure, the match wasn't all that good. I guess you would probably have to expect that. Cena was. He wasn't as fine tuned as he is now. Back then, he's still kind of, I don't want to say green, but
he was green.
But he definitely wasn't the worker he is now. And JBL has never been, the best in-ring performer ever. So the match wasn't going to be all that great, but it at least told the story, and the feud going into it was very intriguing. You really thought, can Cena be the guy to do this? JBL did give some doubt that maybe John Cena's whole struggle would be for nothing, and that his reign would continue. It was a really good story. And
think of it this way: JBL went from being a lower card guy, a guy that nobody cared about,
lower card tag team wrestler, to the most interesting character on SmackDown.
And think about this,
and I'll
too.
say in the company.
And think about this, too. JBL's title reign, 280 days. Stan Stasiak's, 9.
Yeah.
So, are we all kind of in agreement that JBL gets the vote here?
Definitely.
JBL is entertaining as fuck.
He brought importance to the WWE Championship after Lesnar left the company.
Like, that guy, I even think now he still could get a great reaction from the crowd. Like, he made people hate him.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately hate him.
And the person that he beat for the title, Eddie Guerrero, is in the next match against Rey Mysterio. Now, a little bit of notes here, and this is another blow-off kind of one in my mind. Eddie Guerrero, 133 days as champion. Rey Mysterio,
an hour and a half.
Yeah, something about maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. It was the beginning of Raw and the end of Raw.
Yeah, he beat Miz at the beginning. Yeah, like that was the Rey Mysterio show. I mean, he put on a great match with the Miz, and then he had a fantastic match with John Cena to end the show.
Yeah, he actually he's got one of the best records for championship title reign. The quality of your matches, it was pretty much 100% of the matches were good.
The match that he won was awesome, and the match where he lost the title was very good as well. Like one of the best TV matches last year for sure. It has to be. Both of them, his match with Miz and like as a worker, he's kind of underrated. Like people, they rip on the 619 and whatnot, but when you really get down to it, he is a stellar in-ring performer. Like
the problem with Mysterio though was the fact that no one had faith in him. That's all it was. They were saying that he was filling Eddie's spot, but he wasn't, because if you look at Eddie Guerrero and Eddie's ratio of matches and title defenses and stuff like that, Eddie was more compelling because he had that mic work. He could make anybody look good. He reminded me a lot like CM Punk in a way. And I'm not kind of biased because I actually wrestled Eddie Guerrero once upon a time. The fact is, he literally had what it took to be a champion, and...
Well, yeah, like he could connect with the crowd perfectly as a face character, and he could make the crowd hate him as a heel. His diversity was unbelievable.
And
he could give him any role and he can make it work.
I'm your pappy. Come on,
yeah, like when he's yelling at his wife, like even though it's a show, you think, oh my god, this guy's like, what a douche. You know what I mean? Like during
that's another thing. Feud. That's another thing I want people to keep in mind is not only is this just for the WWE Championship, where you shouldn't factor in other titles, especially when people kind of mix up the World Heavyweight Championship with it. But at the same time, I kind of want this tournament to be about the championship reigns themselves as opposed to the characters. So I don't want people that are Rey Mysterio fans and think that Rey Mysterio does really good work to be like, well, he was a better champion. How could you possibly say he's a better champion than somebody who actually had a reign?
He didn't get a real reign. Like, sure, it counts in the books, but so does Dolph Ziggler's world title reign. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And when it comes down to it, as much as I like Dolph Ziggler,
Eddie's victory was an emotional moment when he beat Brock. I mean, they still kind of replay that moment from No Way Out 2004, and he had a great face run. And he lost it to JBL, who went on to have a great reign. I'm sure it pissed off many Eddie fans, and they wished he could have had the title longer. But, for carrying SmackDown, I thought he did a good job.
Testament to Eddie as well, though. Think about it. He got JBL over initially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
imagine you've got this lower card guy. No one believes him.
Feud.
Yeah, definitely. No one believed that gimmick was going to work. And I'll tell you something, right? Being a diehard Eddie fan myself, I was literally going nuts when JBL won the championship. I was literally looking at it as... a misconception, but it worked, and it worked because, like, partly due to Eddie. And look at the feuds he had after he lost that championship. Kurt Angle, to name a few. He had feuds with Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit. Yeah. Eddie Guerrero literally was a workhorse, and even though his title reign wasn't that long,
that I wish he could have really had would have been like maybe a match against The Undertaker. Or at least something with Shawn Michaels.
I think that was like, sure.
Yeah, those are like the two major matches he never really got to have, which is unfortunate because those two could have tore the house down.
And just to let you guys know as well, there is a match on YouTube. This is the match that was featured on the CM Punk DVD of Eddie versus Ray versus CM Punk. I don't really remember what the promotion was, but you'll find
Wasn't it IWA?
I think it was IWA. I think it was Rotten's promotion. And it was a classic, a literal classic.
So we're all going with Eddie Guerrero here?
Oh, yeah, for
That's
sure.
straight.
All right. All right, then there's Superstar Billy Graham against Sergeant Slaughter. I can't tell you anything great about the Superstar Billy Graham reign, but I can tell you that at the very least, Sergeant Slaughter's reign with the end of the feud, at the very least, with Hulk Hogan was interesting enough that it had death threats and it got over the WrestleMania 7 angle. So that enough is reason for voting for Sergeant Slaughter over Billy Graham, as far as I'm concerned. And Sergeant Slaughter is not somebody who's going to last that long in this tournament for me, because even though I'm going to vote for him now, I'm going to vote against him against Edge next round.
For me, Slaughter as well, because again, the one feud that got me into wrestling in the first place was Slaughter versus Hogan, WrestleMania 7.
Oh, it was?
Can't hate on that. Yep, it was one of my favorites, and great feud, and the whole turncoat American going over to Iraq, it was brilliant. It totally showed that Vince was on the pulse at the time.
Anybody who gets death threats and you have to switch your venue because you're scared of a talent's well-being because he's playing his role that well, you're doing a damn good job as a heel. Just give Slaughter the victory. He was the man for that one title reign. And
he was given the ability to take out Ultimate Warrior, too. So they had their...
double plus.
Their reasons for doing that. And that's not saying that Ultimate Warrior, was absolutely fantastic, but they booked him starting off as somebody who really was, like, the new guy. So a little bit of credit to Sergeant Slaughter for being the guy that beats the guy. And that was a short title reign, only 64 days, but it's good enough that people still remember it.
It was solid. It was memorable as well, and that's what people have to look at.
Doesn't matter how long, it's what you do in the time that you're champion. Leave an impact.
How well can you remember a reign?
Yeah, that's really one of the parameters for this. And the next one is Rob Van Dam against Chris Jericho. Ooh. And this is one where it's unfortunate that Chris Jericho doesn't have a better title reign, but at the same time, I don't think Rob Van Dam had the good one either. So I have to go with Jericho by default, but as much as I like Jericho as a performer and as a champion for the World Heavyweight title and the Intercontinental and all that, it's he's not lasting long in this tournament. If he wins this round, which it seems like he's going to, most people seem to be voting for Jericho, he'll be facing Kurt Angle, and he'll be losing to Kurt Angle.
Yeah, well, the Jericho reign was booked terribly. I think I can say that. That's kind of what gives it, like, the sour thumb, basically. Like, he was basically just used to be fed to Triple H.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. He could have had, like, a long heel title reign, like a JBL reign or something like that, to truly make a name for himself, and it just didn't happen. And then on the other side, Rob Van Dam,
pointless.
It was like he finally won the WWE title. I mean, he's been super over for like 4 years, and the company never ever took advantage of it. And then they finally gave him the ball, and then he ends up getting fucking busted and having to drop it, and it became forgettable. What should have been a memorable title reign
turned into a 22-day waste of time.
A 22-day waste of time because he got himself busted for drugs or whatever it was. So
it was marijuana.
Yeah, of course.
And it was in the car. It was marijuana and speeding, and he was in the car with Sabu.
Boy.
Yeah, and he didn't even take. He was literally like, I didn't do anything wrong. So yeah, I'm going with Jericho all the way, because Jericho's reign was more memorable than Rob Van Dam's. Yeah, he had that one big event against Cena for the title. Fair enough, he beat Cena, but it was kind of a questionable win. I'll go with Jericho all the way. He beat Stone Cold and The Rock for his reign.
Yep.
I think I got to give Jericho that. Yeah, very good point. He does bring it up a lot.
Yeah.
He's never undisputed champion.
There you go.
100% of the vote.
Now, the next round, round 2, Steve Austin will pop up. And and he's going to get a shot against one of these two guys, either Jeff Hardy or Diesel. Now, this is a little tough for me because I don't think that either of them really had a good title reign, but at the same time, I don't think either of them were necessarily bad champions. It's just a matter of Jeff Hardy. They screwed him over. I mean, he had a much better World Heavyweight title reign than he did with the WWE title, and it was just absolute nonsense with the whole switching back and forth between him and Triple H and Edge, where they didn't want to put Jeff over, and so
they didn't want him to go over Triple H because they didn't want him to look stronger than Triple H. It's like Triple H is like scared that he's going to take his position or something like that.
Actually, that's kind of wrong because
not really.
Triple H lost to Hardy in a match prior to Hardy winning the WWE
Championship.
Championship.
It was number one contenders match. He wasn't dropping anything to him.
I know, but he literally he put Hardy over clean. I believe what they were trying to set up initially was to stop Triple H from putting, like, in a sense, putting Edge over, because Edge, the way he won the belt in the first place was shady. But for me, Hardy in general, he doesn't seem like the type of guy. Because think about it this way, right? How he initially left the company in the first place was questionable.
Well, he left because
he was failing drug tests. You know, he wasn't really the kind of guy that you would actually focus a company around. Yes, he was super over, but he wasn't, you know, literally the guy. You know, and so they had to.
Could have been had he. Kept his demons okay.
Yeah, but again, that's not the WWE's fault. That's his fault.
I know it's his fault.
Yeah, and in general, if you're looking at a guy like Diesel, before he initially won the WWE Championship, dude took out, like, how many of his teammates at the Royal Rumble? He had that huge feud going on with Michaels, defeated Bob Backlund, and had one of the quickest finishes to a match until... I think it was Kane's ECW Championship reign, but we'll negate that. We'll go back onto Diesel here. He's had matches with Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. He had matches with, like, literally some of the best out there, But the problem was he couldn't get over because he wasn't a good face.
Yeah, he's a heel character. It's kind of they're both like screwed in their title reigns from what WWE did with them.
The title pretty quick. I mean. I don't think it's not fair to say he wasn't ready for that kind of a role. To me personally,
because they sort of jump shotted him into that role. He could have been ready, but they needed to give him a bit more coaching to get there. It's like handing the title to Jack Swagger. You know that he's not going to get him anywhere because he wasn't ready at the time.
Right.
Now with Diesel, what I would actually say, his reign was longer than Hardy's, so that would give him an advantage over Hardy. He had a better core of talent to actually feud with. He wasn't feuding with the same two guys.
They were struggling at that time as well with a lot of different things. So he had the company in a worse position than Jeff Hardy and had less to do with it and all that kind of stuff. So I actually give my vote to Diesel over.
I give my vote to Diesel too.
But I think that Jeff Hardy proves himself in the World Heavyweight title as being a decent champion. Now that's not this tournament though.
I was a huge Jeff fan for a long time, dating all the way back to the Hardy Boys. So, like, for me, his title win was extremely, like, oh my God, he finally did it.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, it was a memorable title win. And even if it wasn't that long, it was still memorable. And it's like, even though Triple H didn't drop it to him properly, I had to pass it to Edge, who then passed it to Hardy. It was still a good moment for me as a fan. And, I'll always remember it.
That's Matt Hardy crying in the background that he never got the chance.
yeah, pretty much. But I give my vote to Jeff.
But again, as I said here, if you look at both of the guys, stand them side by side, Diesel will win head and shoulders above Jeff because of the fact. And if you're going to look at Jeff's other reigns as well, the guy was he's proven time and time again that he just can't carry the company because he shits all over everything that he's ever done. The
most important thing here is that whoever wins, they're facing Stone Cold, so they lost. There's no way that they're going to make it on past round 2. And Stone Cold's going to beat them and then face the winner of Brock Lesnar and Ric Flair. So
this is what actually should have happened when the NWO came back. It should have been Austin versus Nash. and not Austin versus that drunk. Anyway.
Next one we have is Pedro Morales and Ultimate Warrior. As much as we bust Ultimate Warrior's balls and stuff, I still kind of have to vote for him on this one. And it's really not too much a shot against Pedro Morales or a shot for Ultimate Warrior or anything like that. It's just kind of, it sounds kind of awful to say, but it really doesn't matter to me because they're going to be facing Shawn Michaels the next round. So I kind of rather would see Ultimate Warrior face him and lose than Pedro Morales.
Hey, you never know.
And I don't think either of them.
There could be a lot of warriors.
So to me,
two words
that vote through the spaces of time.
2 words in the Warriors' reign and how it started. Randy Savage. Right, if you think about that, and also think about the fact as well how who Warrior had to beat to become a dual champion.
He beat Hogan clean in the middle of the ring. He's like the first guy to do it, So it's a big deal, and he had a title reign of decent length, and that's when he was at the hottest peak of his entire career.
Now, I think his title reign is way more memorable. Or get some our case about this. Yes, Hogan kicked out. We all know about the Hogan kicking out.
Yeah, after the 3.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, Warrior, even though Hogan tried to bury him, Warrior did look strong. Warrior had a hell of a few hell of a matches with Savage and that lot. He had a hell of a match with Slaughter before he ended up getting whacked over the head with that crown, with that scepter, shall I say. So, Warrior did have a memorable reign. Morales, I can't even tell you how his reign went because I don't even know.
Right.
And I'm very old school.
Then we have Kane against The Miz. And this is another thing where Kane had 1 day of a title reign. So no matter who you're going to put him up against, the only people that he could be considered a better champion than would be probably Rey Mysterio and Andre the Giant. So Kane's World Heavyweight title reign, that was cool, but his WWE title reign was pointless. So
I disagree.
In comparison, The Miz, I think, was a really good WWE champion for what they gave him, especially when you consider how they kept overlooking him for The Rock and everything. He still ended up inserting himself into there, and he still kept trying to make it relevant. And I liked Miz's title reign a whole lot, so I got to give Miz the vote over Kane. There's no reason whatsoever I think that Kane should get a victory over Miz here.
I'm going to explain to you why I disagree with you, Tony, and this is a huge issue that I have with Miz's reign. He wasn't booked strong. That's my whole issue. Even though Kane had a small, minuscule reign, he was booked extremely strong for
it. Yeah, but look at the two of them.
I don't mean as a heel, because you could have a weak heel still get booked strong, depending on how they worked. And the problem with The Miz was he was at the wrong place at the wrong time, because they weren't putting their faith in him. It's the same what happened with Punk and the World Heavyweight Championship. They gave him the belt, expected him to run with it, and then kept changing their minds what they were going to do with him. And it got to the point where he was a WWE champion who got lost in the shuffle in a feud between Cena and The Rock. And it's the whole awesome truth thing all over again. Yes, he did hold his own. Yes, he tried to do it the best that he could with that championship, but he didn't do as much. His reign, for me, wasn't as important as Kane's reign, because Kane came in, was established as this monster, got the WWE Championship off of Stone Cold Steve Austin, the guy who was literally on fire in the company, right? And then ended up dropping the belt back to Austin in order to Austin to progress in regards to his feud with McMahon. So Kane was kind of a catalyst, but he held his own in regards to that rivalry. He was a big thing at the time. He went up against one of the company's greats. The Miz, backhanded Randy Orton. Got the Money in the Bank contract, pinned him after the guy got destroyed by the Nexus, and his reign just sort of flopped all the way in comparison because they didn't help him build his reign properly. I think the biggest match he had in his reign, to me, was his match against Jerry Lawler.
You're the tiebreaker, Braden. Who do you think, Miz or Kane?
Well, I have to go with Miz for all the reasons that you pointed out earlier. Like, I
Damn
didn't think
right,
he was
take
going
that,
to. Well, I didn't think he was going to go into WrestleMania as champion. I thought surely, this is not going to last very long. He wins it in December. There's plenty of time for him to drop it to somebody else, and they actually went with him. Like he walked into the WrestleMania main event as champion. Sure, The Rock being the guest host and doing his thing with Cena kind of maybe overshadowed that, which it shouldn't have. I mean, it should have been strictly about Miz trying to prove himself against Cena. I thought that would have been a better story than, hey, I'm the champion.
How did his match end with Cena? How did his match end with Cena at WrestleMania?
Yeah, it was a rock bottom. It's how Cena's own match with The Rock ended. Anyway, that's beside the point.
No, but how did he win the championship against Orton as well? It was literally
like
handed
everybody else
the belt.
does.
No, but
so was Edge, and so was the abysmal reign of Swagger, and so was.
No, but let me explain to you about Edge though. Edge carried that belt because he had a huge feud built up with Cena, and he elevated Cena's game in that feud. The Miz didn't elevate anybody, and I'm not saying it was his fault because it wasn't. He was badly booked. He wasn't fed quality contenders. He wasn't given the opportunity to hold his own as a main event heel in the company. They tried to promote him as such, but they kept putting him aside for something better. And that was the problem, because all attention went on Cena.
Well, it still does. It's still a problem.
No, it is still a big problem. But again, you've got a guy like CM Punk who's too polarizing to actually focus it. And even though the company's forcing Cena down your throats, Punk's holding his own. Whereas The Miz wasn't in the proper position to do so. And as aptly put in CM Punk's DVD, The Miz wasn't in a proper position. He wasn't the company's top heel. Punk was.
Well, Punk was the top heel when he was the leader of the Straight Edge Society, and they still didn't do shit with him then either, which...
Yeah, but that's the thing. He had more value than The Miz, even though they gave the belt to The Miz. And The Miz's reign didn't matter as much. His reign mattered as much as Punk's reign with the World Heavyweight Championship the first time around, where he was getting destroyed by everybody, and then finally they just got the belt off him.
Well, we're going old school with the next one. I want to see what people say about the Kane and Miz thing in the comments. This one should be one of the boring ones that nobody really comments on, and that's Iron Sheik against Buddy Rogers. I'm going with Iron Sheik. I'm afraid he's going to humble me if I don't.
Sheiky Baba should win this, or else it's fucking bullshit.
That just made my millennium.
I think we could probably even skip the rest of that. And just we're all just going with Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
Enough said. Sorry, Buddy Rogers. Doesn't matter at all that you're the inaugural champion. You're a champion for 22 days. You're the first champion of all time. We don't care. We're going with Iron Sheik. And that ends us with the last one, and I purposely set these two up against each other. Andre the Giant against Big Show. And here's another title reign that basically doesn't exist. Andre the Giant gets the title, says he's going to sell it. Was that even when he said that he was going to sell the tag team championship? Or am I mixing up my stuff?
No, you're confusing that with
he was going to win the tag team championship.
Yeah, he won the world championship with Hogan because he came in, looked really strong. Hogan was crying like a bitch because Andre tore his shirt, and he was like, "Why, Andre? Why?" He went in, faced Hogan. He won the match, and then ended up selling the belt to Ted DiBiase.
Right.
And Jack Tunney was like, "Fuck that! That's not happening." Put the belt up. And then they had that whole Battle Royal thing that led to Macho Man Randy Savage's
tournament final victory.
As champion. But again, it was one of those things where it had some value to it in regards to Savage's reign, but not as much value as the Hogan-Andre feud. So even without the belt, the feud sort of carried on. In terms of Andre's reign, it had a lot of importance in regards to giving Savage his reign as world champion. It brought a sort of mystique to the championship as well, because it was literally, this title was going to be sold, to somebody else. I mean, no man was going to buy the championship. That's how important this championship was. And in terms of the Big Show's reign, the Big Show has had some reigns. It's like, yeah, he beat Brock Lesnar for his initial reign as WWE Champion. Didn't really mean that much. I think he did have another WWE Championship reign before that.
Yeah, he
was
beat
with the
Triple
Big
H.
Boss Man. Yeah, he had that. But again, the reign was just terrible.
See, I'm going with Big Show. I'm going with Big Show just because I can't justify Andre being a champion as opposed to the storyline of dropping the title being the focal point. I think Andre as a champion, you can't say that he was a good champion because he didn't get the title reign. So it's kind of by default, Big Show has to win.
I'm going to quote Triple H on this.
I gotta agree with Mike on this one. It's the man that makes the
championship, not the championship that makes the man. Because every time Big Show's held the title... Yeah, go on, Braden.
Well, no, you can go ahead, because basically I'm going to say the exact same thing as you. Finish what you were saying.
Basically, the Big Show's title reign was mundane. There was no focal point to it. It was one of those things where he was holding the championship until Triple H got it back. It was one of those things where Big Show came in strong. He looked awesome. He was even teaming with The Undertaker, preparing him for a reign as a world champion. And his reign just turned out to be a big pile of feces. It didn't work. And as with Andre the Giant, and this is what I was saying with Triple H, it's the man that makes the reign. The Giant, Andre the Giant made that title reign mean something without only holding the belt for a minuscule sort of minutes. He managed to get himself as established champion, bring meaning to the championship because the importance of this championship, that it was actually bought by somebody, and then made it even more important by moving it onto the Macho Man Randy Savage and continuing his feud with Hogan, even though it was kind of secondary to it, but it still elevated Macho to that main event status.
Valid points.
With the Show's reign, it was just like Big Boss Man and Albert.
Keep that in mind, everybody, when you vote. And next round, the winner of that's going to face Psycho Sid, so that'll be kind of interesting. But that's it then for the tournament for the first round that we're going through. Next round, I'm going to break this up because I really didn't expect us to talk as long as we did. And this is going to take me forever to make this video. But I'm going to break them up into smaller segments next time. We're only going to have 5 matches the next round instead of... or the next post, I mean. Next round, it's going to be the winner of the Batista Koloff one against John Cena. The winner of Stasiak and JBL against Mick Foley, the winner of Mysterio and Guerrero against Randy Savage, and then there's also going to be 2 of the other people that are brought into it, Alberto Del Rio and CM Punk. So I'll tell you the results of what happened this week, and then we'll start knocking those people out, and it should be 4 sections for round 2, and then probably 2 sections for round 3, and 1 section for round 4, and so on and so forth. So make sure you guys tell me what your votes are. Go and vote at smarkoutmoment.com before Tuesday night. Polls shut off then. And then we're going to go talk about, in part 4 here, the TNA Bound for Glory pay-per-view predictions.